What's going on, everybody? Appreciate y'all stopping by for today's video. So today is February 11th and it's someone's birthday today. That's a iconic guitar player in the metal world, and I'm talking specifically about Frederick Thorndahl of Meshuggah. So to kind of celebrate his birthday, his influence and all of that, I'm going to take my 8-string, which is the Ibanez M80m Meshuggah signature guitar, even though it may not look like it. And I'm going to restring this whole thing and kind of give you all a little story about how this guitar got to the state that it's in. And just some tech tips along the way. So without further ado, let's get into the breakdown. Make sure y'all like, comment, subscribe if you can. Let's get into it. Okay, so let's just start with a kind of a top-down explanation of what all is going on here. What makes this guitar different from a stock M80m? It's really not that much, to be honest with you. So all the wood, the electronics, the frets, all of that is the same as stock, but where I started to change things up is obviously with the finish. The original refinish had the entire guitar looking like the back right here. The idea was I wanted to take the stock look of the M80m and make it look like the M8M, which is the Japanese-made version of their signature, and it's like a $8,000 guitar. So I was very happy with it. But you know, as the years have passed and this has been my main guitar for probably the last 3 years, it's grown with me, and it's grown with me as an artist and a musician. And I've just wanted to change a couple things along the years. So after I did the original refinish, around the middle of last year, I just had the idea to do a blood splatter finish. I've always loved the look of blood splatter guitars, and I thought it was well time that I gave it a shot of my own. I've seen a lot of blood splatter finishes on guitars. I'll be honest, I think most just don't look good. So it was important to me that I nailed the technique and got it to a place where I'm happy with it. So we got a brand new paint job, refinished this guitar twice. I found this sticker after I moved, which is, I think his name's Paleface from the movie Pan's Labyrinth, and I just knew it would look absolutely sick slapped right there where the neck pickup should be, so that's where that sits. Other than that, I replaced the original tuners with hip shot locking tuners, and they've treated me very well over the years. And as far as tuning goes, the tuning on this guitar is really, really crazy. You can see that I have it labeled right here, because it's honestly, it gets hard for me to remember this specific tuning with the sharps. But essentially, it's drop C sharp, but double drop C sharp. So this low 8-string is an entire octave over standard 6-string C sharp. Sounds pretty crazy, sounds super low, and it is super low. However, the scale length of this guitar is the only reason I can get away with that tuning. Don't quote me on it. I think the scale length is a little bit over 30 or 31 inches on this guitar. It's essentially bass scale. And that's also why I tune it so low. You know, if I'm gonna have a baritone guitar, I wanna go all the way baritone with it. All right, so that's kind of the explanation behind it, guys. You know, the only other thing, I have these DiMarzio clip locks on here. I've been using those for a very, very long time. So that's the history behind the guitar. Also, I'd love to shout out my friend Chris Johnson. He's the one that sold me this guitar back in 2020. Love you, buddy. All right, guys, so I think it's about time we dive into this guitar. I'm gonna pull the strings off and just show y'all some tips and show y'all my methodology and mentality behind restringing this big old thing. Let's go. All right, so first things first, when you're restringing your guitar, you need to decide what tuning you're gonna put it in when you restring it. Is it gonna stay the same, or are you gonna change it? If you change the tuning, you're gonna have to do a lot more work typically. And what I mean is, you're gonna have to adjust your intonation. Your intonation is the distance between your nut and your bridge saddle. By adjusting that distance at your bridge on most guitars typically, you're going to effectively change the pitch of the note you're hitting on each string. And ideally you want each fret to be accurate. So in this circumstance, I'm not doing that. I'm just swapping a new set of strings for the existing tuning. So I will check my intonation, but it should be good to go. That being said, this tuning is really crazy, guys. So double drop C sharp. Then you got to figure out what strings you're going to use. So I got kind of lucky. I love D'Addario strings. They're the only strings I want to use after all these years of playing what feels like every string on the market. I love these MYXLs. They're fucking awesome. They just sound good, they last a long time, and they maintain their snap. So this is a 9 to 80 set. It was really designed to put a standard 8-string guitar in standard tuning. However, since this is an extended scale instrument, a very extended scale, I found that this set of strings works really well for the tuning that I told you all about. So we got our tuning figured out. We got our strings. Now it's time to get the strings off the guitar. So this is a very interesting guitar in the way that it's a standard fixed bridge, but it's not. The fixed bridge on these guitars, I forget the exact name for it. Comment below if you can remember what this bridge is called. But it's a tremolo style bridge that's fixed. If you see right here, so you see that. That's what I'm talking about. So you see that pin right there? That's actually driving into the body of the guitar. And the reason the guitar was designed this way was for tuning stability. And after so many years of playing it, I can tell you it works. It absolutely works. Having a locking nut with a tremolo style bridge that's acting as a standard fixed bridge just really works for these types of instruments. So we only need a couple tools. We're gonna need our Allen wrench to take these string pads off, locking nut pads. And we're going to need to undo the string down here at the bridge. So let's do that. Also, shout out Music Nomad. They make like the best tools for all of this stuff. This is a little peg winder by them that I use. I don't use this as much anymore, but it's kind of like an everything tool for guitars. The Guitar One, this is like polishing oil. Again, not really for this guitar. But yeah, they make great stuff, guys. Music Nomad, check them out. All right, got everything off the headstock. Spin the guitar around and get it off the bridge. Strings are off. These are so old and smell terrible. Let's go on to the next step. All right, we got our strings off. Time to put new ones on, right? No, wrong. The worst thing you can do after you take your strings off is immediately slap the new ones on. Your guitar is now at a state that it's not normally in, so it's in our best interest to check all the things we can't normally check, all right? Let's start at the headstock. Two incredibly common issues you're gonna run into is the nuts holding your tuner pegs into your headstock. They come loose. They come loose due to vibration, due to whatever. So all you're gonna do is take a wrench and check them. And don't use the wrong size. Like, make sure if your guitar is standard, use standard. If it's metric, use metric. This guitar is metric, and I'm thinking these are probably 10 mil. Yep, that's exactly what they are. See how I just got a little turn out of that? I want y'all to watch as I go down. Solid, you know, getting a good eighth of turn out of these guys. And this is something that I do almost every restring. Why? Because this is what happens. They get loose. I don't know how. Like I said, vibration or whatever. I'm not cranking them down. Just get them tight. Tight and torqued. This is also a good time to check your tuning peg retention screws. These guys right here. And you're going to want to check, well, I guess these are also tuning peg retention screws, but the ones that are going into your body. Just take your screwdriver. Again, don't crank them down. Just make sure everything's tight. And if you crank down these tuning peg screws too hard, you're not going to be able to tune this. So easy does it, guys. Just give her a little tap, tap, tap-a-roo. And I know this might seem like minor or very minute to a lot of guitar players, but what makes a guitar a fantastic guitar is the attention to detail, right? So what I'm really trying to get here out of these tuning pegs is I want them to all have the same tension when I turn them. I don't want any to be too tight and too loose. Typically, the really low strings are the ones that loosen up the quickest and the most because they're the ones getting played the most on these strings, or these guitars, sorry. All right, so that feels really good. I'm happy with that. Let's check these should all be good. The screws that hold the tuner into the guitar neck itself, if you even have them, some just have guide pins. These are really the last to ever become loose for whatever reason. Oh, shit. Put a little dent in her, guys. Don't judge me. All right, that looks good. Let's move along. Since the guitar's turned over, I figured might as well be a good time to also tell you to check your control plate screws. These aren't super important, but what is important is if you have a bolt-on guitar. Don't be afraid, guys. If you didn't even know about tech work, a screw is a screw. Wood is wood. Put your screwdriver in there. Make sure everything's tight and happy. Nothing moves, so that's a good sign. And you're gonna give her the old flippity flip over there. All right, guitar's turned over, and since I'm already in the headspace of just checking tightening, your next step is to check every single screw on the guitar. Because you're not gonna be able to get to most of these with the strings on, especially like the nut, right? Check every single screw. Right now I'm just checking the pickups. Shouldn't have to adjust them really, but yeah, they're still good. Uh-oh, see, that's not good. This just came right off. But I know for sure this isn't wired. So what I'm probably gonna do is move my volume down here, plug this hole, everyone's happy. Okay, screws are tight, everything's good. Now it's time to talk about yo nasty, grimy, booty, dookie frets. Frets are pretty much always a thing I see guitar players just neglect or ignore, either because they're scared to do fret work or they don't want to touch them. I don't know what the deal is, but I'm gonna tell y'all and show y'all exactly what I do to my guitars and my frets. Okay, so the good news is you only need a couple things to do this little fret cleanup job. First thing you need is a clean surface. You're gonna be making a lot of mess with steel wool shaving, so make sure you're in an area where it's easy to clean. You're gonna need steel wool, 4/0, 4 zeros. This is like the industry standard for cleaning and polishing frets. It's used all over the world, and it's cheap. You can get it at Home Depot. After that, you're gonna need some type of powered magnet or just a good magnet. I use an old guitar pickup, works great. And I use this to pick up all of the steel wool shavings, right? And the very last, you're gonna need to use this stuff. It's called F1 oil. There's other brands that make other types of shit, but I like Music Nomad stuff. I've been using it for a very long time. And this is going to go on the fretboard to hydrate and oil it up. So let's just freaking clean this nasty thing. All right, y'all, so I'm about halfway done with the polishing. Just wanted to kind of show you the visual difference here of polished versus unpolished frets. So let's see if I can get an angle here. Moving along, you can really see the shine, the reflection, right? And right about here, that stops. So this is the visual difference between a polished and unpolished fret. And keep in mind, these unpolished frets are not in the worst shape. If you want to go check out the video I just posted of restringing my 6-string guitar, the Virgo that I built, those were in way worse shape. But nonetheless, you can see a pretty stark difference, I'd say. Well, that sucks big old dong. I was just wiping this thing down and the little like lock and tuner nubby screw for my hip shot tuner just fucking snapped off. That sucks. So I'm gonna have to order a new one of those. Fuck. Kind of lame about that tuner, but we must press on. So we got the F1 oil right here, and all I do to apply this stuff, this is an 8-string guitar, so it's a little bit bigger. I'm gonna do double what I normally do. Typically I'll just do one line down the whole guitar, but we got us a wide boy. I'm gonna do 2, just a little bit extra down there at the higher frets because it gets even wider. And then at this point, with my hands, I'm gonna rub this in, try to penetrate that fretboard wood. Don't worry about using too much. It's better to use too much oil because you're just gonna wipe this stuff off. Anything that doesn't penetrate the wood is gonna come right off with a rag. And the reason I'm using my hands is I can really get in close to those frets. Just want to get a nice even spread here, all the way up and down the neck. Don't neglect them higher frets. Let me show you what this looks like. This is with the oil applied. This is definitely not how you want to leave the guitar, but what I'll do now, let's give it like 30 seconds, maybe a minute. Just a little time for the oil to penetrate the freshly worked wood. Yeah. All right, I'd say that's been enough time. So now just take your microfiber cloth and start wiping that stuff up. Now, as I'm trying to soak up this oil, I'm also putting a little pressure on the neck to help penetrate it even more. This is usually my favorite step of the restringing process because it really just makes the guitar look brand new again. Having a freshly polished neck with clean frets, bright frets, nice hydrated fretboard, it really does just make a guitar look so much better and so much more well cared for. All right, that looks good to me, so let's do another swing through. All right, and there you have it. That is with the oil cleaned up. As you can see, there's no liquid, no goop on the surface. Just a really clean, happy fretboard, my boys. Woo! When you start putting these strings in, make sure that string is centered within the saddle. See how to the left of the string and to the right of the string is about the same amount of space? You want that all the way down. Okay, and this is what I was talking about with your strings. See how the space to the left and the right of where the string enter each bridge saddle is more or less centered. If you have it too far to the right or too far to the left, even though it seems very minute, you can run into tuning issues and stability issues. Now we're gonna swing this big old thing around. I'm gonna work from this side now. Right. Cool. And it also looks like, since I've been waiting here, there's a little bit of fretboard oil that just came up. So we're gonna wipe that down. The wood will tell you if it's too hydrated. It will reject whatever oil it can't soak up. So just clean that off. All right, y'all, we're in the home stretch here. So one more thing that I like to do, and I recommend you do as well before you actually start tuning the guitar, is pre-stretch your strings. The way I do this is I'll hold the string at the nut, and that's because you don't want it popping out, you don't want it grinding up on anything, so just kind of go up and down your string and stretch it out. Guitar strings are made of metal. Metal stretches and contracts with heat, cold, use, and all of those things. So all we're doing here is saving ourselves a lot of annoyance in having to constantly retune our guitar for the first couple days that the strings are on there. Sometimes it could take hours of playing to get strings to kind of settle before they're good, if you do not do this. I don't remember who taught me to pre-stretch my strings, but I've been doing it for well over 10 years. and I've been having far less tuning stability issues over those 10 years. So, I don't got to do anything crazy with it. Just stretch them out. And now what we're going to do, so I'm going to take my little locking pads here and not completely tighten them down, but just kind of like finger tighten them. So the string can still move, but they're not rattling around a bunch. If you don't have a guitar with a locking nut, this step will not apply to you. And the reason I'm only going finger tight is, especially on these higher strings, the locking pads don't need a lot of tension to just lock the string in, so just barely finger tight. And the only reason they're tight at all is I just don't want them jangling around, being very annoying. Okay, so now we are going to plug this thing in. We're gonna tune it up. All right, let's get started here. Starting in drop Z, everybody. I am not even using the right amp. Fucking sick. All right, y'all, so it seems like these strings are pretty much stable. Everything's sounding really good. Double drop C sharp. So really all that's left at this point is I'm going to tighten down my locking pads. This right here. Tighten down the locking pads on the nut. And after that's done, I'm gonna use the fine tuners down here to just finalize the tuning, and that's it. That's the whole restringing process with a couple of tips and everything in between. So thanks for hanging out, guys. If you'll watch the whole video, I appreciate you. Commenting anything you want to talk about down in the comments helps me a lot, and it gives me ideas for stuff in the future. I really want to put out just awesome content for the world, for you guys. So if you stopped by to watch the whole video, I appreciate you. Leaving a like, comment, and even subscribing if you're into my stuff would mean a lot to me. I'm prioritizing putting out really awesome content as often as I can this year. I'm trying to post daily. So as always, y'all, be safe, be kind. Have a nice day.